Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the class. Today we are going to discuss about the different types of the estimate. In the last lecture we discussed the basic definition of the estimate and its importance, the factors which need to be considered before preparing any kind of the estimate, and we also talked about the what kind of the data is required for making an estimate. In this video lecture I will try to cover the different types of the estimates that we have, starting from the preliminary estimate. Then we have Plinth Area estimate, cubic rate estimate, approximate quantity method estimate, detailed estimate, revised estimate, supplementary and revised estimate, annual repair or maintenance estimate. Now, first of all, talking about the preliminary estimate, it is also known as the approximate or the abstract estimate, which is prepared in a short time in order to find out the approximate cost of our project. It is basically required for the preliminary studies of the various aspects of the work or any project to decide its financial position and the policy for administration sanctioned by the competent administrative authority. Preliminary estimate is based on the practical knowledge of the engineer and the cost of the similar work. Now, the important things that are required for the preliminary estimate is, the very first thing that we should have is brief report. The second thing that should be the brief specification. And the number third, we should have site plan and a brief idea about the rates. These four things are very important before making up the preliminary estimate. Now, there are different ways in by which this estimate is prepared. Now, first of all, talking about the building. In case of the building, this kind of estimate, that is the preliminary estimate, is prepared on the basis of per unit. So we say that it is prepared on the basis of per unit basis. What does that mean? And that if we have to make a preliminary estimate of a building, and if it is a school, say it is a school, for a school it will be made like per student. If we have a school, for school it will be on the basis of per student, and same for the hostels as well. Similarly, if say we have a hospital in a building, we have a hospital. In case of the hospital, it will be made on the basis of per bed. Similarly, there are various examples talking about the cinema. It will be on the basis of per seat. So this is the case of the building. And the other basis for making a preliminary estimate for a building is the Plinth Area estimate and the cube rate estimate. These two, we will talk about them a bit later. For now, let us move to the part B. Say this is a building. Now, if I talk about the roads and highways, in case of the roads and highways, it is prepared on the basis of per kilometer. per kilometer length. Similarly, if we have the irrigation channels, if we have the irrigation channels, in that case it will be made on the basis of per kilometer depending upon the capacity of the channel, or in case of the irrigation canal, it can be also made on the basis of the area of land commanded. These things you know. Similarly, if we talk about the bridges or the culverts, bridges and culverts, it is based on the basis of, it is prepared on the basis of per running meter of a span. Per running meter of a span. Similarly, if we have to prepare an estimate for sewerage projects and water supply projects, in that case it will be made on the basis of per head of population. Or on the basis of area covered. If you have to prepare an preliminary estimate for overhead water tanks, then this will be made on the basis of capacity of per liter of the tank. So now talking about the second type of estimate, that is the plinth area estimate. What is a plinth area estimate? Basically it simply consists of working out the plinth area of a building, which is then multiplied by the plinth area rate to get an estimate of that building. Now the plinth area should include the this plinth area should include the covered area by taking the external dimensions of the building at the floor level. And one should we need to remember about the plinth area that the openings like courtyards and other any kind of opening should not be included into the plinth area. Then the plinth area rate is approximately calculated by the similar type of the building which has been constructed in the vicinity of the such building. This kind of estimate, that is the plinth area estimate, should be accompanied by the brief report, line plan of the building and the brief specification. Then the third type of estimate is the cubic content estimate, or what we call a cube rate estimate. In this estimate it basically consists of working out the cubic content of the proposed building and multiplying it by the rate per cube. You can see it here. So plinth area, we know it from the dimensions, then we will multiply it by the height, we will get the cubic content of that building, then multiply it by the rate per cube. Now one thing about the height should be taken from the floor level to the top of the flat roof or halfway of the sloped roof. If it is a sloped roof, then we have to take it up to the halfway of the sloped roof. Then we have the fourth type of estimate, that is the approximate quantity method estimate. Now in this estimate, it basically consists of calculating the approximate total length of the walls in a running meter, and then this total length is multiplied by the rate per running meter of the walls, which gives us the fairly accurate cost. For this, the structure may be divided into the two parts, that is the foundation, but the foundation will include the plinth and the superstructure. So after that, the running meter cost for the foundation and the superstructure are calculated, and then it is multiplied by the total length of the walls, both separately for the foundation, that will include the plinth, and separately for the superstructure. After that, the next type of estimate that we have is the detailed estimate. Now what does detailed estimate mean? Detailed estimate is basically the accurate estimate, and it consists of working out all the quantities of each item of work and working the cost of each item. All the dimensions such as the length, the breadth, and the height of the each items are calculated very correctly from the detailed drawing, and the quantities for each items are then calculated, and abstracting and billings are done. This type of estimate should be accompanied by the detailed report, detailed specification, detailed drawing, calculation, and the design of various items such as columns, beams, slabs, etc., and finally analysis of rates. So in this estimate, basically there are two different forms. The first one is for the measurement and the calculation of quantities. In that case, the details of the measurement of each item work are taken out correctly from the plan and the drawing, and quantities under each items are computed in the tabular form, what we call the details of measurement form. In that table, first of all, we have to mention the item number, then we will describe that item. And one thing about the description, it should be brief, and it should be very informative. Secondly, we will mention the number, how many times this type of work is involved in our project. Then we will calculate its length from the drawings, we'll calculate its breadth, then the height or the depth, then multiply all these, and we will get the quantity, and then we can have also the remark, if any. Then moving on, we have the second part, that is known as the abstract of the estimated cost. In the abstract, the cost of each item of works are taken out in the tabular form, okay, for those quantities which we have already calculated in this form. So how we make the abstract? The abstract of the estimate is made like item number, description, and this will be same as that of this one. Then the quantity which has been calculated here, then we will select the unit for that quantity, and then we will have the rate, we will have the amount when we multiply the quantity and rate, and then we will also mention their remark if there is any. So moving on to the next estimate. The next estimate that we have is the revised estimate. Now what is the revised estimate? It is simply again the detailed estimate, and it is required to be prepared under a few conditions. The first condition here is when there is a material deviation from the original proposal, even though the cost may met from the sanctioned amount, then we need to prepare the revised estimate. The second condition for the this kind of estimate is that when the original sanctioned estimate is exceeded, or it's likely to exceed by more than 5%, then again the revised estimate is prepared. Or another condition is when the expenditure on a work exceeds or likely to exceed the amount of administration sanction by more than 10%. These are the few conditions in order to prepare a detailed revised estimate. The other type of estimate is the supplementary estimate. This type of estimate is again a detailed estimate, and it is prepared when an additional works are required in addition to the original work, or for the further development if required during the process. For that purpose, we need to prepare a fresh detailed estimate in order to do that further developmental work. Another type of estimate we have is supplementary and revised estimate. Now, talking about the supplementary and revised estimate, when a work is partially abandoned or the estimated cost of the remaining work is less than 90% of the original work, or when there are material deviations and changes in design which can save cost in the estimate, then the amount of the original estimate is revised by the authority. So for that case, a supplementary and a revised estimate is then prepared, and the fresh technical sanction of the competent authority is obtained. Now the last one is the annual repair or the maintenance estimate. And now this type of estimate is prepared for maintaining the structure or any kind of work that has been constructed for it is proper and for it is proper functioning, and to keep it safe. For a building, this includes the work such as washing, painting, and the minor repairs. For road workers, annual repair estimate provides for the for the repairs like the patch repairing, renewals, repair of bridge and culverts, etc. Everything is included in this. This is all about the different types of the estimates that we have. Now after that we need to understand few terms. I will write them there. Like, we need to understand the term contingencies. Now what does contingency means? It indicates us some incidental expenses, some incidental expenses of the miscellaneous character. These expenses cannot be classified under any separate item or a subhead, yet these things pertain to the work as a whole. For these types of expenses, a provision of 3% to 5% should be made. 3% to 5% of the total cost should be made for this thing. The next thing that need to be understood here is the work charged establishment. Work charged establishment. Now, what is work charged establishment? During the construction of any work, a certain number of supervisors or the chowkidars, mates, etc. are required to be employed, and their salaries are paid from this work charged establishment. So this is basically the contractual staff, or we can say that these are the temporary staff. For this expense, a provision of 1.5% to 2% of the total cost is made. Then the other thing is tools and plants. In short, we can say T and P. When our project is big, a percentage of 1 to 1.5% of the estimated cost is provided for the purchase of tools and plants, so which will be required for the execution of the project. Normally what happens, the contractor has to arrange his own tool and plants and use his own tool and plant in order to complete the project. However, sometimes the provisions are made for such expenses also. Then the other type of charges are the cintage charges. Cintage charges, also known as the departmental charges. Now, what are those charges? Sometimes what happens, the engineering department takes up the work of the other department, and then what a percentage of about 10 to 15%. 10 to 15% of the total estimated cost is charged to meet the expenses of the establishment, designing, planning, supervision, whatever, etc. And this type of percentage is known as the cintage charges. Now we have to understand a few more terms, like we have to understand the meaning of the schedule rates. What are the schedule rates? Basically, in order to facilitate the preparation of the estimate, and also to serve like as a guide in setting rates in connection with the contract agreements, a schedule of rates of all the items of work is maintained in the engineering departments in the form of the printed books known as the schedule of rate books. In that, everything is mentioned, every type of work is mentioned, and the rate per unit of various items of the works and the material, even the rates of the labors and the rates of the transport, everything is mentioned in that book. So this book basically facilitates, helps an estimator or the quantity surveyor to prepare an estimate according to the these certain rates of the material and the labor. The second thing you should know about is bill of quantity, BOQ. It is basically the statement of the various items of work and giving the description and the quantities and the unit of rates. Then you should also know the terms like the day work, prime cost, provisional sum. These are the simple terms which you should know. Day work or the prime cost, provisional sum, so now what is basically a day work? The term day work is basically used to denote a procedure of costing or valuing an item of work on the basis of actual labor and the materials required. Similarly, we have the prime cost. Prime cost is the actual cost of the article at the shop, and it refers to the supply of article only and not to be carrying out of work. We have the provisional sum. Provisional sum is the amount provided in the estimate and the bill of quantity for some specialized work to be done by a specialist firm whose details are not known at the time of preparing the estimate. So another term you should know about is the plinth area. Plinth area is simply the built up area covered covered area of a building measured at a floor level of any story. Similarly, we have the floor area. First, you should know about the plinth area, then what is floor area, what is circulation area. Now talking about the floor area of a building is the total area of floor in between walls and consists of floors of all the rooms, verandas, passage, corridors, staircase, room, entrance hall, kitchen, stores, everything is included in the floor area. Then we have the circulation area. Circulation area is the floor area, veranda, passage, corridors, balconies, entrance halls, staircases, etc. Circulation area is basically divided into two categories. One is horizontal and the other is vertical. Now the horizontal circulation area includes the veranda, passage, corridors, balconies, porches, etc. And for the horizontal circulation area, it should be 10 to 15% of the plinth area. 10 to 15% of the plinth area. Then we have the vertical circulation area. It includes the staircases, lifts, entrance halls. These type of things involve the vertical circulation area. For this, the area should be 4 to 5% of the plinth area. And then other thing you should know about is the carpet area. Now what is carpet area? Carpet area. Carpet area is simply the useful area. Therefore, it is the total area minus the circulation area. What is a useful area? A useful area basically means the livable area. So if we have to find out the carpet area, what we will do, the total floor area will be subtracted by the circulation area and the non-usable area. Circulation areas, you know what it involves. Non-usable areas like which are non-livable, like the sanitary accommodations. All these things need to be subtracted from the floor area and we will get the carpet area. These are some important terms which I discussed with you, which you should know as a civil engineer. So in this video lecture, we will be discussing no more terms. These are sufficient terms that you should know. In the next video lecture, we will start our numericals, where we will discuss some numericals on the basis of the preliminary estimate, also on the detailed estimate. So let us have a quick review what we have studied in this lecture. We started off with the types of the estimate, and then we discussed every type of estimate, which we found that there are total the 9 types of estimates, 9 important types of estimate, I would say rather. Then we discussed about the we discussed about some basic terms, some basic charges which need to be included in our estimate, and then we talked about some basic terms which a civil engineer should know, or which a quantity surveyor, at least a quantity surveyor, should know about these terms, like the schedule rates, bill of quantity, day work, prime cost, provisional sum, plinth area, floor area, circulation area, carpet area, whatever it is. So this is it for today. Thank you very much for joining the class. Allah Hafiz.